Hey Raiders fans, welcome back. Today we've got a special update on the Raiders and some big news that you definitely don't want to miss. I've been watching everything closely, and I've got a strong feeling that the Las Vegas Raiders are about to make a move that could change the entire direction of this franchise now. Before we dive into everything, let me say this: the energy around the team is shifting. You can feel it in the way people are talking, in the way the front office is acting, and especially in the way one player has been performing. If you bleed silver and black, you've probably heard the name Fernando Mendoza. And if you're like me, you've probably been thinking the same thing. This guy is the definition of commitment, the definition of toughness, and the definition of winning. I know some of you might be looking at the numbers and thinking, okay, but what does the stat sheet really say? And I'm here to tell you. The stat sheet doesn't tell the full story. Sometimes it's not about the yards or the completion percentage. Sometimes it's about the moments, the leadership, the ability to rise up when everything is on the line. And that 4th and 5 run for a touchdown, that was a moment that screamed, I am not backing down. That was a moment that said, I will do whatever it takes to win. And that's what you want in a quarterback. You want someone who doesn't flinch. You want someone who doesn't hesitate. You want someone who looks at pressure and sees opportunity. The thing about Mendoza is that he's not just a talented player, he's a leader. You can see it in the way he carries himself, in the way he plays, in the way he handles adversity. He's not the type of quarterback who gets rattled when things get tough. He thrives. He steps into those moments and turns them into a statement. When he said, I would die for my teammates, I believe him, because you can see it in the way he plays. You can see it in the way he fights for every inch, in the way he never gives up on a play. That's not just passion. That's heart. That's leadership. That's the kind of player you build a franchise around. And here's where things get interesting. Mark Davis was in attendance at that game. He was there. He was watching. And I'm not talking about just a casual glance. I'm talking about eyes locked in, paying attention to every play, every decision, every moment. Because when you're the owner of a franchise and you have the #1 overall pick, you don't just watch a player like that and shrug. You don't just say, oh, that was cool. You pay attention. You take notes. You make sure you're seeing everything you need to see to make the right decision. And the fact that Mark Davis was there, that he was watching Mendoza, tells you something. It tells you that the Raiders are seriously considering him, and not just considering him, but maybe even leaning in his direction. But it wasn't just Mark Davis. There were other big names in attendance. You had Tom Brady there. You had John Spike with the Raiders. You had other head coach candidates reportedly at the game as well. And on top of that, Raiders minority owner Egon Durbin was also there. So that's multiple owners, the general manager, and potential coaching candidates all watching the same player. That's not a coincidence. That's not just a casual scouting trip. That's a coordinated effort. That's the front office and the ownership making sure they are all aligned on what they believe could be the future of the franchise. And let's be honest, the Raiders need a quarterback. That's not even a question at this point. We've been through so many cycles of signing veteran quarterbacks, hoping for the best, paying big money, and watching it fall apart. Geno Smith is likely gone, and it seems clear that he's ready to move on to a team where he can make more money and have a fresh start. Kenny Pickett is also heading into free agency, and the Raiders are not in a position to keep paying for a rotating carousel of quarterbacks. The truth is, if the Raiders don't draft a quarterback and they don't make a major move, who is going to lead this team? Because the reality is, Aidan O'Connell is not the answer. He can be a backup. He can be a bridge, but he is not the franchise quarterback that this team needs. So when you look at Fernando Mendoza, you have to ask yourself, who else makes sense? If you don't want to trade for Lamar Jackson, and you don't want to use the #1 overall pick on Mendoza, then what is the plan? Because the Raiders need to stop repeating the same mistakes. The quarterback situation has been mishandled for too long. You can't keep bringing in journeyman quarterbacks, paying them huge sums of money, and expecting different results. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and calling it progress. That's insanity. And Mark Davis knows that. The fans know that. The team knows that. That's why this year feels different. That's why this year feels like the moment where the Raiders finally commit to a long-term solution. When you look back at the Raiders' history, you realize that the last time they drafted a quarterback in the first round was Jamarcus Russell. And that draft pick still stings for a lot of people. It's a reminder of what can go wrong. But here, as the thing, Fernando Mendoza is not Jamarcus Russell. They are not even in the same category. Russell was a player who, unfortunately, did not have the work ethic, the discipline, or the heart to be a franchise quarterback. Mendoza is the complete opposite. Mendoza is the kind of player who wakes up every day and works like he's got something to prove. He's the kind of player who is all about his teammates, all about winning, and all about doing things the right way, and that's why, when you watch him play, you can't help but believe that he is a franchise quarterback. The Raiders have spent way too much money on veteran quarterbacks who were never going to be the long-term answer. Gardner Minshew, Geno Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, and others. These guys can be good players, but they are not the solution. And when you keep paying big money for players who are not the answer, you're wasting resources that could be invested in building a real, sustainable foundation. You want to build around a young quarterback, because that's how you build a team. That's how you create stability. That's how you fill in the other pieces on offense and defense. And with the Raiders having a high number of draft picks and significant salary cap space, this is the perfect opportunity to do it. Right, the Raiders have a chance to rebuild in a way that makes sense. You can build the offensive line. You can build the defense. And you can build a team around a young quarterback who already shows the leadership and the drive that you want in a franchise player. And if you put Mendoza in that position, you're not just drafting a player, you're making a statement. You're telling the league that the Raiders are serious about winning. You're telling the fans that the Raiders are committed to building something real. And that's why I believe Fernando Mendoza is the player the Raiders should pick now. I know there are going to be people who say, well, what about the other quarterbacks? What about the athleticism? What about the arm strength? And I'm not going to lie. There are quarterbacks with better physical tools. There are quarterbacks who are more athletic, who have stronger arms, who can make plays that Mendoza can't. But football isn't just about physical tools. Football is about winning. Football is about leadership. Football is about the ability to make the right decisions when the game is on the line. And Mendoza has shown that he can do that. He has shown that he can manage a game, stay calm under pressure, and lead his team to victory when it matters most. And that's why I'm convinced that the Raiders are going to draft him, because when you look at everything that's happening, when you look at the ownership, the front office, the coaching candidates, and the way Mendoza plays, it all points in the same direction. The Raiders are looking for a leader. They are looking for a quarterback who can change the culture. They are looking for a player who can bring stability and consistency. And Fernando Mendoza fits that mold. The Raiders are at a crossroads. They have the number 1 pick. They have the resources. And they have the opportunity to finally make the move that sets them up for the next decade. And I believe that move is Fernando Mendoza. He is a winner, a leader, and a player who makes everyone around him better. And if the Raiders choose him, they will not only be getting a quarterback, they will be getting a foundation for the future. Now let's talk about one of the most important reasons why I truly believe Fernando Mendoza is going to be the pick for the Raiders, and it goes beyond talent. It goes beyond a strong arm, beyond accuracy, beyond athletic ability. It goes to something that you can't measure on a stat sheet. It goes to leadership, to character, to the ability to make people around you better. Mendoza is a leader of men, and the Raiders have been missing that for years. When you look at the past few seasons, you can see the pattern. The Raiders have been searching for someone who can not only throw the ball, but who can lead a team, who can hold a locker room together, who can be the voice that keeps everyone aligned. And that's not a small thing. That's not something you can just hope for. That's something you build. That's something you invest in. When the Raiders hired Josh McDaniels, I was skeptical from the start because I didn't see the leadership traits that you need from a quarterback. You can have a talented quarterback and still lose a team. You can have a quarterback who is physically gifted, but who doesn't inspire the people around him. That's not what Mendoza is. Mendoza is the kind of player who shows up every day, who does the work, who pushes his teammates, who sets the tone. And you can see that in the way the Indiana program transformed under his leaders. 2 years ago, they were not a program that anyone expected to compete for championships. But then you see them go from being one of the worst teams to becoming national champions. Undefeated, 16-0. That kind of transformation doesn't happen by accident. That kind of transformation happens when you have a leader who makes everyone around him better. Now, some people will point to other quarterbacks and say, yeah, but Anthony Richardson is more athletic. Yeah, Justin Herbert has a stronger arm. Trevor Lawrence has better legs, and I'm not going to deny any of that. Those guys have incredible physical talent, but here's the thing, when the game is on the line, when the pressure is at its highest, when the entire season comes down to one moment, what do you want? Do you want someone who has physical gifts but who might not have the mental toughness? Or do you want someone who is calm, composed, and confident? Mendoza has ice in his veins. He has the ability to stay calm under pressure and make the right play when it matters most. That's what separates a good quarterback from a franchise quarterback. And if you look at his performance in the college football playoffs, it's not just impressive. It's dominant. 74% completion percentage, 9 total touchdowns, 8 passing and 1 rushing, and 0 turnovers. That's the kind of performance that tells you this guy knows how to win in the biggest moments. He doesn't need to put up flashy stats. He doesn't need to chase records. He just needs to win. And that's what he does. He manages the game. He makes the right decisions. He keeps the team in control. And when the moment comes, he makes the play. People talk about talent all the time, but talent without leadership doesn't win championships. You look at the great quarterbacks in history, and they all have one thing in common. They make the people around them better. They elevate the team. They become the heartbeat of the franchise. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. These are quarterbacks who didn't just have talent. They had the ability to lead. They had the ability to make the right decisions. Under pressure, they had the ability to carry a team through the toughest moments, and I believe Mendoza has that same quality. He's not the most athletic guy on the field, but he is a field general. He is a player who can control the game. He is a player who can lead a team to victory. Now let's talk about another critical factor, head coach security. The Raiders have had 6 different head coaches since 2021. That's not stability. That's chaos. And if you're a coach, you want a team that gives you a chance to build something. You want a team that gives you a quarterback you can develop. You want a team that shows commitment to a long-term plan, and the Raiders have a chance to do that with Mendoza. If the next head coach knows that the Raiders are willing to draft Mendoza at number 1 overall, that coach will feel more confident about the future. That coach will know that they have a quarterback to build around, and that changes everything. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy, drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are growing loud around the Raiders organization after explosive behind-the-scenes chatter involving MAXX CROSBY began circulating across league circles. According to sources close to the situation, the star defensive end has reached a breaking point with the direction of the franchise and has delivered what many are calling a clear ultimatum to team decision makers. The message, as it's being relayed in league gossip, is blunt and unsettling. If the Raiders commit to bringing in a loser to lead the next phase of the team, Crosby is prepared to demand an immediate trade. While nothing has been said publicly by Crosby himself, the tone of the rumors suggests deep frustration rather than impulsive anger around the league. Crosby is viewed as the emotional backbone of the Raiders, a relentless competitor who embodies effort, toughness, and accountability. That reputation is precisely why this speculation has sent shockwaves through front offices and fan circles alike. Players of Crosby's stature rarely float such hard lines unless the internal tension has been building for some time. The concern, according to insiders, is not about money or personal accolades, but about credibility and ambition. Crosby reportedly wants assurance that the Raiders are serious about winning at the highest level, not merely reshuffling familiar names or settling for safe, uninspiring choices. In his mind, bringing in leadership perceived as unsuccessful or complacent would signal another wasted chapter in a career defined by maximum effort. For the Raiders, this rumored stance creates an uncomfortable dilemma. On one hand, Crosby is the kind of cornerstone franchises spend years searching for. On the other, allowing any player to influence organizational decisions sets a delicate precedent. Yet league observers note that this is less about power and more about urgency. Crosby is said to be tired of speeches and promises, craving tangible proof that the Raiders are ready to escape mediocrity. Whether this ultimatum is a negotiation tactic, an emotional warning, or a genuine point of no return remains unclear. What is certain is that the Raiders now find themselves under an unforgiving spotlight, with every move scrutinized through the lens of one question: are they building to win now, or risking the loss of the one player who refuses to accept losing as an option. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.